Hi, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and Rivera has given us the preseason plan against the Panthers in this upcoming preseason game. Week 1 preseason, Saturday at 1 p.m. I'm so excited. He gives us insight on how long each quarterback will play, how long the starters will play, whether or not Curtis Samuel will play, some updates on some of the injuries who will be available, who will not be available. I'm super excited. Y'all know me, man. I'm going to do a whole preview of that preseason game. I'm going to do a preview of every preseason game and every regular season game and every postseason game. Y'all know I'm going to speak it into existence. So make sure you be on the lookout for that, because in that preview, I'm going to break down the 10 players I feel like we all need to keep our eye out for the most. Granted, I'm really interested in seeing how everybody looks. I mean, pretty much all 91 players, for real. I mean, even the guys towards the back end of the roster, like Channing Stribling and Dewan Neal and recently signed Stephen Parker, but I'm going to try to narrow it down to the 10 guys that I'm going to pay attention to the most. Spoiler, y'all already know Sam Howell and Brian Robinson are going to be in there, and my boy Armani Rogers. But there's more than that. Also, I still got to do a breakdown for what went down in training camp today, so make sure you're on the lookout for that. I already uploaded the highlights from everything that went down in training camp today, day 14, August 11th, as in Thursday, along with a bunch of interview clips from Ron Rivera, Tress Way, and Joey Sly, if you're interested. But we're about to go ahead and dive into this. I'm super excited because Rivera basically told us everything that's about to go down. No secrets. Hopefully we get like an official injury report before the game, and I'll update y'all on that as well when it comes out. But for right now, everything we know, let's get to it. And before we dive into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, make sure you pull up every Friday to the broadcast live show with me, Shay, and my brother Jalen. We talk about everything, anything funny going on, sports, music, anime, literally everything. The main goal is to laugh and to be informative, so make sure y'all pull up, man. And also make sure you pull up every Sunday for the call-in show. Of course, this one will be directly after the preseason game, so make sure y'all pull up and call in with whatever questions and observations you may have after the preseason game. And we got to talk about what went down in training camp leading up to the preseason game as well, because I may hold a separate live stream after the preseason game, a post-game live stream after the game, directly after. I'm a live stream during the game. Y'all know me. I'm a live stream during every preseason game, every regular season game, and every postseason game, unless something comes up. And of course, every regular season and postseason game, we're definitely going to have the call-in shows, but these preseason ones probably will, not exactly sure yet, but no matter what, we're going to have the Sunday call-in show anyway. And without further ado, let's get it. Sorry for the long intro, just had a lot to mention, man. I'm super excited about all of the content that I'm working on. I have so many video ideas, even outside of all of the updates that I'm giving y'all. Like every time something happens, training camp, whatever, moves, players sign, players release, all of that type of stuff, I'm gonna update y'all on that. And that's mostly what I've been doing for the past few days since training camp has started. But I promise y'all I'm about to get back to these film sessions. I have a whole bunch of nice video ideas, like why we should have a top 10 O-line again this year video that I talked about a few weeks ago. I'm working on all of those, so man, make sure y'all stay tuned for all of that. But again, sorry for the long intro. I'm just super excited about all of the content I got coming up and all of the live streams too. I can't wait to live stream during the game, after the games, all of that. But Ron Rivera said that the starters will play between 15 to 20 snaps versus Carolina on Saturday, and it all depends on what's going on, how many they'll actually play, because he's given an estimate like 15 to 20, assuming that we'll be somewhat good and somewhat bad. But if they go out there and ball out, say 2 straight drives, nice 3 to 8 play drives with like an explosive touchdown at the end, we just go score 14 points like it was nothing, they'll probably take Carson Wentz, Terry McLaurin, and Curtis Samuel, all of those guys out immediately after that, because it's like, okay, we've seen enough. And then by then they would have only have ran like 10 snaps, which is under Ron Rivera's estimate. But if they also go out there and look terrible, similar to what Ryan Fitzpatrick looked like in the preseason last year, maybe even worse, I'm pretty sure they would probably play more than 20 snaps, because they'll be like, man, we just got to find at least a little spark so that we can have a little bit of momentum going into training camp in the next preseason game, a little something. We gonna keep y'all out there until y'all at least make something happen. It don't even necessarily have to result in points, but if they just look completely terrible, I can see them holding them out there for longer than 20 snaps. And then of course, say they're like in their third drive, and the first play of that drive is like the 14th snap, maybe the 15th snap. If that drive goes for like another 10 plays, 11 plays, and maybe results in a touchdown, then that's like 30 snaps right there. So, I mean, I don't know exactly how, if they're going to strictly stick to that 15 to 20 and for real pull them out at 20. I don't know. I doubt it, though. I really do. But ideally, they're not bad enough to where we even have to think about that and discuss that and weigh those options. Also, he expounded upon exactly what he's looking for in these preseason games, because of course he wants the starters out there, Carson Wentz, all of these guys, and we're going to dive into all of that. But he also wants to see what they look like on third down specifically. That's huge. For our defense especially, third downs is really big. But of course, with all of these new pieces on offense, offensive line, wide receiver and Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel finally back. He technically wasn't even here last year. And then you're starting quarterback. So we got to see how we look on third downs on offense as well. But third down defense, I feel like defense is definitely more important third down wise. And then red zone wise, I'm definitely more so looking at the offense. I mean, defense, it matters as well, but offense for sure. Sadly, Trai Turner won't be there. Carson Wentz is possibly even favorite target in the red zone already because they're being overly cautious with his hamstring injury. We're going to dive into injuries soon and why I feel like nobody should panic over a lot of the injuries that we're dealing with right now and a lot of the guys that won't even play this upcoming preseason game against the Panthers. But again, third downs, red zone, and he also wants to see how they handle the huddle. These are new quarterbacks. Well, at least the starter in Carson Wentz and the third string in Sam Howell. He needs to see if they can command the huddle. And I mean, you got to get out of the huddle as quickly as possible. Everybody has to be on the same page so that you can get to the line of scrimmage. And a veteran guy like Carson Wentz, one of the advantages of him being a veteran is that he's pretty good pre-snap. He knows how to read a defense, see what their setup is based on what we brought out, and he knows how to adjust the line, change protections, audible, maybe go to a hot route, maybe change a pass and play into a run and play, things like that. So the quicker you get out of the huddle, the more time that Carson Wentz has to read the defense and make any adjustments if he feels like it. Now, it's kind of funny too, because that's why some teams run no huddle at all and they cheat the system, because you know technically the headsets are supposed to go off between the head coach, offensive coordinator, whoever is part of the headset with the quarterback in their helmet. After a certain point, it's supposed to go off. But if you run no huddle and you're at the line of scrimmage immediately while the play clock is still at a very high number, then technically the quarterback is at the line of scrimmage, the offense is set up, so now the defense is set up and showing what they plan on doing, and now the offensive coordinator, head coach, whoever's calling the plays is on the sideline looking at that, and they can tell the quarterback what audibles to make and things like that. So some teams kind of cheat that system. I remember Sean McVay doing that with Jared Goff a little bit. But we don't do that. I just thought that was an interesting piece of information to share with y'all if y'all didn't know. We don't do that, but still, Ron Rivera wants to see how we are coming out of the huddle, how quickly we can get out of there, and of course we got to be efficient. It doesn't matter if you get out of the huddle quickly and everybody's not on the same page, so we need both to be true. Everybody on the same page, get out of the huddle as quickly as possible so Carson Wentz can have as much time as he needs to make pre-snap adjustments. And then also, Ron Rivera is preaching consistency, and man, that's the name of the game for a few of these guys. Curtis Samuel, health and play-wise. We'll see with Jahan Dotson. I mean, all of the rookies, really, even Jahan Dotson, how consistent are they already? Remember, the rookies, they haven't played any NFL football at all. This is their first preseason game, let alone regular season game. So who knows how consistent these guys will be, if they're nervous, they have jitters, stomach butterflies, all of that type of stuff. So we'll see how consistent they can be early on, most importantly for the rookies. But then Carson Wentz, Mr. Inconsistent himself, at times looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and then at other times looks like what's going on. And I felt like the Saturday night practice literally showed the Carson Wentz experience. Now, granted, he was better for the Colts than what he was that Saturday night practice for us, if we're just looking at his overall season, but it was really bad. I mean, ones versus nones. Literally, Carson Wentz, Terry McLaurin running routes, no defender, no corner, no nothing, and Carson Wentz was missing Terry McLaurin. Nobody in the way, nobody out there, no reason to overthrow him, underthrow him, throw it in front of him too far. Incomplete passes is ridiculous in ones versus nones. But then at the same time, he had beautiful deep bombs to Terry, a great back of the end zone throw to Curtis Samuel. I believe he had a really nice deep bomb to Mark and Michelle as well. It was the full Carson Wentz experience, and so Ron Rivera is definitely preaching consistency, because I feel like Carson Wentz is number one in who needs to improve their consistency, who definitely needs to be more consistent than they've been so far throughout their career, and even since being here so far in practices. Now, granted, this last week of practice has been Carson Wentz's best week of practice by far. Really, these last 4 days, basically every practice after that Saturday night practice have been literally his best days of training camp. Like, if you were to rank his best days in training camp, these 4 days would all be the top 4, and you can put it whatever order after that. So that's good. I mean, he's only getting better and better and better, which is good to hear. But we still need to see how consistent he can be, especially against other teams. And I got to see how consistent he is with dealing with this O-line that's suffering from a lot of injuries. Again, we're going to talk about that when we look at the rest of the list of the starters, because remember, Ron Rivera said the starters are going to play 15 to 20 snaps. So we got to take a look at who those starters may be, especially with us dealing with a lot of injuries. But I am worried about Carson Wentz's trust in this O-line, especially going against a team that no longer cares about his safety. Montez Sweat would be in the backfield quite a bit in training camp, but he's not allowed to hit Carson Wentz, and Carson Wentz knows that. But now it's a preseason game where these guys are trying to make plays and really working on their craft, and some of them may be trying to make a team. So now there may be real fear setting in if the O-line isn't holding up against the Panthers D-line, but we'll see. Carson Wentz is known for how well he stands in the pocket and takes hits and delivers passes. Just with trash around his feet, all of that, he ignores it like a veteran should, but we'll see how consistent he can be with that. And then, of course, the secondary, we got to see how consistent they are, because, I mean, they've been balling so far in training camp, but that first half of last season was ugly. Let's see if we can get something there. We got to see how consistent this D-line is now with the new defensive line coach, with Jeff here and Sam Mills III gone, with Warren Sapp and Ryan Kerrigan helping. Consistency everywhere, and Antonio Gibson's probably top 3 who I'm worried about with consistency with the fumbling and passes hitting them right in the chest and them dropping it. He made one diving catch at his ankle yesterday that was like a ridiculously difficult catch to make, but then he drops the easy ones to his chest. So that's Mr. We got to see you be consistent if there is one. Him and Carson Wentz are easily in the top 5. And now moving on to the starters, Curtis Samuel will start. I'm assuming Terry McLaurin will start, and he even said that Benjamin St-Juste will be out there as well. He will play, even though he's been on the side field the past couple of days. He will be out there. Chase Roullier will not, though. And he's been back with the starters. He's been running team drills. He's been getting ramped up, but he will not start and will not play against the Carolina Panthers. And they're just being overly cautious with everybody. Like I keep saying, I feel like if there were a Super Bowl literally tomorrow, pretty much probably everybody would play except for Chase Young probably on the PUP list. Everybody else would probably, even Logan Thomas, I feel like Chase Roullier, of course, Curtis Samuel, J.D. McKissick, all of these guys that have been hurt on the side field and things like that. I'm not exactly sure about Cornelius Lucas, and we'll talk about him soon, because Ron Rivera finally gave an update on Cornelius Lucas and his situation, and then maybe Trai Turner as well. But for the most part, a lot of the guys that have been missing practices or just sitting on the side field, if there were a game that we had to win tomorrow, like a Super Bowl, I'm pretty sure the majority of everybody would go. I feel like, honestly, Chase Young is the only one where it's like he definitely wouldn't play. Everybody else are at least maybes. So I'm not really worried about it. I think they're just being overly cautious. No reason to rush anybody back way too soon. These games don't count in the win or loss column, so there's no reason to risk any worse injuries, any further injuries. So guys like Cole Turner will not be there with his hamstring injury that he's been dealing with. So that means the tight ends move up the depth chart. Logan Thomas still on PUP list, so that means Sammis Reyes, Curtis Hodges, and thank goodness we have John Bates. They'll all be out there playing. I'm expecting to see quite a bit of Jahan Dotson. Again, I expect to see Terry McLaurin as well. I'm expecting to see some Antonio Gibson. I want to see some Brian Robinson with the first teams, please. We'll probably see some J.D. McKissick as well. And then defensively, of course, we have the usual starters. I think Benjamin St-Juste, even if he's not technically out there snap 1, he'll probably take the majority of the snaps with the starters. I can definitely see that happening. And then, of course, Cameron Curl and Bobby McCain are your starting safeties. I'm really interested in seeing how good Jamin Davis looks. If it doesn't look too great, he may need to continue playing with the second team just like he did last preseason. And then, of course, with Chase Young out, James Smith-Williams is your starting defensive end opposite of Montez Sweat. And then going to the offensive line, which is the most conflicting group of starters that we have, because what's going on? Chase Roullier won't participate. That's our starting center. Tyler Larson is still on PUP list. Trai Turner, your starting right guard, is out with the quad injury for like the next few days, probably over a week. Rivera said he'll be back within 10 days yesterday. He'll probably come back closer to that 10. He may not even play next preseason game, but we'll see. So your starting offensive line, obviously Charles Leno left tackle, Samuel Cosmi right tackle, Andrew Norwell at left guard. But then center and right guard is interesting because Wes Schweitzer probably moves up as your starting center, and then it's probably Sadiq Charles or Chris Paul starting at right guard. I don't know. They'll probably mix it up. Maybe Wes Schweitzer starts at guard sometimes, and maybe they move Keith Ishmael all the way from the depths of the depth chart and then move him up as your starting center so you can see Wes Schweitzer at guard. I don't know. We'll see though. I'm really excited about seeing Chris Paul out there, and I hope he at least goes out there with the second team at worst. And before we move on to when each quarterback will play and for how long, man, Curtis Samuel, it's your time, bro. I know it's only the preseason, but we got to see if you can handle contact in a semi-real situation, if you can look explosive out there. I want to see some end around, some sweeps, some things out of the backfield. I want to see him get open down the field, all of that. I want to see the full Curtis Samuel experience so we can start to take some of the weight off our own shoulders as a fan base worrying about you. So far, he's looked good in contact practices so far with pads on and stuff, but we'll see what he looks like against another team. But I'm really happy that he is a full go with the first team snaps. But quarterback wise, Ron Rivera said that Carson Wentz will basically play the first quarter, start his 15 to 20 plays. We'll see how long that takes. And the Heinicke will pretty much play quarters 2 and 3 generally. And then Howell will come in at some point in quarter 3, especially if Taylor Heinicke's looking good. We'll probably throw Sam Howell in there as soon as possible. And that's what I'm hoping happens. I hope Taylor Heinicke looks so good that we get to see Sam Howell as soon as possible in the third quarter. And then he's going to finish out the game. Remember, we don't have any quarterbacks outside of those 3. No Cole Kelly, no nothing. No fourth quarterback on the back end of the roster being hidden away, nothing. Literally Sam Howell, Taylor Heinicke, and Carson Wentz, that's it. Sam Howell has already shown enough to where they felt confident in just going ahead and letting Cole Kelly go. And y'all already know, like I said, and I'm again in my preview video leading up to this Panthers preseason game where I talk about the 10 players we need to watch out the most for, Sam Howell is easily one of those 10. Probably at least top 5. And so I'm super excited about seeing him go out there and ball out, especially against the other team's third team. In practices, he's been going against our first team defense. That's what he did some yesterday, and he looked pretty good, making passes and everything. So I think he's gonna ball out against the Panthers third stringers. I think that's obvious, and I'm just excited to see how much he balls out. And even though De'Ami Brown isn't far enough in the depth chart for him technically to be out there with the third stringers, I think you need to throw him out there and at least let Howell throw some passes to him, just like a couple of them, something. Please, I want to see that connection back again. I'm pretty sure Sam Howell and De'Ami Brown would love it. I'm pretty sure when Sam Howell's out there, De'Ami Brown's gonna ask to go out there with them. I mean, first of all, even just to be completely selfish, De'Ami Brown would be wide receiver 1 out there with the third stringers, so he would be able to shine out there with those guys, and I think that would be really fun to watch. But of course, like I said, I can't wait to see Sam Howell go out there. I think he's going to ball out. And then speaking of Cornelius Lucas, since I didn't talk about him with the starters because he isn't one, he's technically our backup swing tackle, so Deke Charles is probably right behind him on the depth chart. He's still out with a non-football illness. I keep seeing non-football injury, but today is the first time I've noticed somebody say football illness, so that's interesting. Still remains sidelined, but Ron Rivera did say that he'll be back on the field shortly. That's positive news, but something more concrete is the fact that he has been actually doing more and more each day on the sideline, so he's definitely ramping up. Again, it's a non-football illness. We're not exactly sure what it was, and this is the first real concrete update I've gotten on him, and that does make me more optimistic about his return, because at first I was like, is he out indefinitely? I haven't heard nothing, but at least now I know once he's good, he'll be back once he gets over whatever sickness that is. One last thing about Sam Howell, Ron Rivera also spoke about Sam Howell specifically, saying that he wants to see how he handles a 2-minute situation, and I would love that, man. With his gunslinger mentality, his strong arm, his ability to run if he needs to, I think he's going to ball out in a 2-minute situation against the Panthers defense, man. I think that's going to be so fun to watch. And before we go, I think there's one really interesting parallel between these quarterbacks that people probably aren't thinking about. And the fact that both of our teams have traded for their current starting quarterback that weren't here the previous seasons. And then both teams' second team guys are projected backups who were here with their respective teams last season. Sam Darnold was a starter last season. Taylor Heinicke was the starter last season for us. And then the third quarterbacks for both teams are quarterbacks drafted later in this past draft. Matt Corral and Sam Howell. I think that's a really interesting parallel between those two things right there. I don't think people have noticed that. Oh, And also, one last thing before we really go, special teams wise, punt return wise, that's one thing I'm definitely looking out for. And I've been hearing today in practice that it's basically down to Dax Milne and Alex Erickson for the primary punt return responsibilities. But Rivera did speak on it and say that don't sleep on Jahan Dotson. And like I've been saying for a couple of weeks now, I wouldn't be surprised if Jahan Dotson is used as like a specialty punt returner to when we really need a play, like really need a play, like the Chiefs with Tyreek Hill occasionally, where they just really needed a change in field position, an explosive play to spark something. Maybe you're down late in the game. I could see Jahan Dotson being our punt returner occasionally in situations like that, but we still need a primary one that's going to do the majority of the punt returns. And right now it's between Dax Milne and Alex Erickson. And honestly, between the two, I think Alex Erickson is probably the better returner, but at the same time, Dax Milne is safer for the roster because he's higher on the receiver depth chart. He's probably even higher than Cam Sims with all of the plays that he's been making this training camp so far. Dax Milne has been balling, one-handed catches and everything, balling even against the first team defense at times, getting passes from Carson Wentz. But again, Alex Erickson is probably in the lead technically for that starting punt returner job. I mean, you even saw it on the depth chart that he was the starting punt and kick returner. So right now he's in the lead, but I think that's really interesting. It is basically down to Dax Milne and Alex Erickson. Everybody else, Kyrick McGowan, Jared Patterson, they're all basically out of the race as far as punt returner goes, but we'll see who will be able to contribute as a kick returner because you have two guys back there at the same time for that. And maybe that's Dax Milne and Alex Erickson, and they just keep it pushing. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please leave a like on this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. Let me know how you feel about Curtis Samuel being with the starters, how you feel about the way the quarterbacks will split their snaps, how long the starters will play. Do you feel like it's too long or not long enough? All of that. And without further ado, man, I appreciate all of the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors, whose name you see scrolling on the screen right now. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.